Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of WeAreSC's Arledge's 10 Questions, where two of the finest minds in college football battle it out for supremacy on a weekly basis. And they're so well matched that pretty much it's 50-50. I said last week that Culkin was a question and a half favorite, but then he got upset. Eric got the win, and now everybody feels pretty comfortable that Eric can compete. Even I think he can. I'm not sure he will, but I think he can. He's capable of that. All right, we got 10 questions. The score is 0-0. Let me grab this pad of paper so I can keep score. I know many of you at home think that I just make up the score, and sometimes I do, but it's nice to have a pad of paper just in case I decide to play it straight. Okay, guys. Big weekend of college football. Little mix up in the polls. You tell me, who is the real number one in college football right now? Mark, you lost last week. You get to go first. Start us off.
I think it's really hard to take that number one away from Alabama. I mean, they've got a really solid win on the road at Wisconsin. I mean, they dropped 42 points on them. And even though they almost gave up well, they did give up the lead to Georgia at home. To come back after you give up a huge lead like that, Georgia's they're not an easy team to beat. Let's be honest here. There's no doubt in my mind, Alabama they deserve to be number one right now. Alabama, Texas, Ohio State. Those are your top three teams.
That is the top three teams in the AP poll too. So
there you go. Give me a vote.
You think they got it right? Eric, did Mark get it right? Is it Alabama?
Probably, but I'd rather him get a point and me not get a point than you gloat about giving neither of us a point because we picked the same answer.
Okay.
So
that's a good way to lose a game right there. That's not.
Yeah, no, I understand everything that comes with that. Look, had Alabama finished off what they started against Georgia, they're number one and Texas is number 4, and there is no 2 or 3. Like that what they would have done there was absolutely enormous. I think Texas has not played their way out of number 1, so I'm okay with that just because Alabama did give that back up to Georgia and have to kind of cling on there at the end. But I don't know. I mean, they made the plays to win. I'm fine with Alabama being number 1. Now, Texas being number 1, they've got Oklahoma coming up. So if you want to send Oklahoma a message and keep Texas number 1, then you can do that too, Chris.
I look, all I want from Texas when they play Oklahoma is to beat them by 80. And if they need to be upset about the polls to do it, that's fine. If they need to be confident and they need to be number 1, that's fine. I don't care. OU barely squeaked out a win against a terrible Auburn team this week after I picked them to get upset. So they still have some beatdowns coming, but sadly we have to wait another week. Look, I think the answer is Alabama because they have the best win of the year. Beating Georgia, even if you beat them like that, is better than beating this year's Michigan team. And Texas has looked pretty sloppy the last couple of weeks also anyway. So I think it's Alabama. But the crazy thing about that is that, you want to talk about a tale of two halves. Alabama was absolutely incredible in that first half and absolutely horrific for large chunks of the second half. And to the point where Alabama gets a big play that saved them from probably having the most spectacular collapse in the history of college football. So I think I put them number 1, but geez, I look at that and say that's not the way I want my team to play when they get up in a big game. And if I were an Alabama fan, I would be extraordinarily relieved and extraordinarily happy and at least a little bit concerned right now. But anyway, that's where we are. Teams went up and down the field and scored a bunch of points. And it was exciting. So people got their money's worth. All right. Question number 2. Oh, Eric gave away that point. So Mark Culkin gets the point. He literally said he would rather you get the point. So who am I to argue with that? Question number 2. Who's the luckiest person in college football right now? Eric, who is it?
I'm gonna go with Charles Edward Chip Kelly. He got out of UCLA, not got out. He did one of the like Joker walking away from the hospital, pressing the button and blowing it up behind him moves to UCLA football. He gets to go coach Jeremiah Smith and the rest of those guys at Ohio State. And every single story about how bad UCLA football is this year talks about Deshaun Foster and not Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly should be taking all of these losses that UCLA puts up this year on his resume. And he has just absolutely walked away from a grease fire that he set at UCLA. And that's it. That's the last talk of him at UCLA, and he gets to go coach those players that somebody else recruited out of high school, mostly at Ohio State.
It's a dream job for Chip. Go somewhere where people will give you great players and you don't have to actually do any recruiting. And then you just scheme up something that works when you have better athletes than all 11 of your guys are better than all 11 of their guys. Chip's pretty good offensive mind. He's going to have success in a situation like that. Okay, good answer. I like that. Mark, do you have a better answer?
It was my answer, so I'm going to have to throw a Hail Mary here.
Okay, what do you got?
I think Lincoln Riley has become the luckiest person in college football. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because his career might have been salvaged with the hiring of Danton Lynn as his defensive coordinator. This is giving his career new life, so to speak. Because I think Coach Riley was being cornered into that one-trick pony. Hey, he can coach offense, but he's not a complete coach. So since Eric took my initial answer, I'm going to throw it up there and see if we can come down with a touchdown on this answer. Lincoln Riley, Danton Lynn.
Okay. Okay, that's a good answer too. But you're both wrong. The answer is Kalen DeBoer is the luckiest man in college football. If you're replacing Nick Saban, which is probably the hardest thing that's ever been done for a head football coach, and if you're up on the premier program in college football by 4 touchdowns, and then you lose, I can't imagine the level of abuse, the level of hatred, really, from those crazy Alabama redneck monsters. It would have been insane. Kalen DeBoer barely escaped with his life Saturday. That's the reality. And he's going to be fine. They're going to win a bunch of games. They have a really good team, and that quarterback is a problem. But boy, did he come close to being the most hated man in the state of Alabama.
What's Kirby Smart's record against Alabama? Anyone know? Anyone? Bueller?
It's not good. I saw it on the screen the other day, and I thought it was 1-6. Yeah.
1-6.
Yeah. It's not good.
But that's part of the Saban destroys his former assistants thing. None of them beat Saban. None of them.
I don't know if he so much destroys his former assistants as it is that he destroys just about everybody. The only person he destroyed was Dabo for like a 4-year period. But other than that, he just run roughshod over everybody for 15 years. I mean, look, I don't like Alabama, and I don't like to say good things about him. That run that he had will probably never be matched. It was extraordinary. But maybe it will be by Lincoln Riley, because Lincoln Riley is now the luckiest man in college football. I get the point. It's still 1-0, Mark Holkin. Question number 3. Where will Jacoby Lane rank all time for big USC wide receivers by the time he's done? Not right now, because right now there are a bunch of guys ahead of him on that list. But where do you think he's going to be when it's all said and done? Mark?
I think he's going to finish in the top 5. And there's a really good chance that if he continues to develop the way he is, by the end of his junior season, he's going to be a hot commodity in that NFL draft. It's going to be interesting to see if he wants to stay for his senior year. Because right now I got him, he will be one of USC's top 5 receivers all time by the time he leaves.
Okay, so let's talk about what that would mean. Top 5. Is he going to be higher or lower than Keyshawn?
Ooh, higher,
Higher or lower than Dwayne Jarrett?
lower.
So you have Jarrett ahead of Keyshawn.
Keyshawn only played for 2 years.
He played
Dwayne
2 years. That's right. Well, Mike Williams only played 2 years. I'm going to ask you, Mike Williams. Are you going to tell me he's going to be better than Mike Williams when he's done?
I know not to piss off the judge with that one.
Don't say that. Don't. I mean, that's crazy talk. It's not going to happen. Mike Williams at this point in his career was already just stomping on people like he was a dinosaur.
I think that's why I said top 5, because it's such a subjective type of question that it's hard to pin him down. He's going to be the number 1 guy, number 2, number 3. Throw him in the top 5, pull him out, and no one's going to be upset you have Jacoby Lane on your roster.
It is a hard question. I ask hard questions, you guys, because I have faith in you. Eric McKinney, what do you think? Where's he going to rank with the big USC wide receivers by the time he's finished?
Yeah, just among the big receivers, I think top 5. Mike Williams and Keyshawn are beyond, right? Those are 1 and 2. Dwayne Jarrett's always an interesting one for me because I think he was really good. I think he also got the benefit of playing in the offenses that he played in. And so, right, Drake London's numbers are not Dwayne Jarrett's numbers. Drake London had an injury in a year where he was going to put up ridiculous numbers, and he had a COVID year. So 2 of his 3 years are cut short. In terms of just pure talent, though, I think I'd take London over Jarrett, even though Jarrett's up there top 5 in like receptions and touchdowns and all that stuff at USC. I think Jacoby Lane gets in. I think he gets in that conversation. I think he gets in that number 3 big receiver conversation. And Michael Pittman is underrated as a big receiver up there too. I think those are the first names that kind of come to mind when you talk really talented big receivers. I think Jacoby could end up being, and again, maybe it's not stats because there's a bunch of guys there and he's not the one guy that you're looking to, or there's not 2 receivers that are just picking up every single catch in this offense. But just in terms of skill and everything that he does, yeah, I think he could finish at number 3.
He makes every type of catch. I mean, that one across the middle where he had his helmet knocked off, tough catch. That one where he split the 2 defenders for that first touchdown, amazing. And he's got soft hands route. So
I'm with you. I think. Look, I think he has a chance to pass up Pittman and London. That's not an easy thing to do. Those guys were really good. I don't think he's going to pass up Mike Williams or Keyshawn. I don't think that's in the cards. But you can be an incredible receiver and not pass up those guys. But I think he has a chance to finish number 3. The point goes to Eric McKinney because, as I understood it, Mark Culkin had Dwayne Jarrett ranked ahead of Keyshawn Johnson, and that's silly. Okay, 1-1. Question number 4. What was the play of the game versus Wisconsin? Eric?
Hank Pepper's fumble recovery.
you don't get to steal 2 answers. You don't get to steal 2 answers from me, Eric.
That's the answer. That's the answer of the play of the game. Look, it's the play of the game because of the momentum turn that it caused, and Jamil Muhammad pointed to that was it. That was the thing you could point to. But the actual play was really impressive. This was not a ball laying on the ground still with nobody around him that he could just pick up. That's sliding out of bounds. You have to catch that clean, or else it's just knocked out of bounds and it's still Wisconsin's ball, and that's where they start from. That's an impressive fumble recovery on its own, regardless of like what it does for momentum and everything in that game.
That's true. That was actually a great catch. I actually think Hank Pepper has a chance to finish in the top 5 of the big wide receivers. Mark, what do you have? What?
Robert Woods or Marquise Lee or Hank Pepper. I think we're more like inside receivers for
those other guys were more explosive, but Pepper is going to make plays. He's going to catch the ball and stay in bounds. Mark, this is the second time that I know your answer was stolen from you, and that happens sometimes in this game. It's a tough game. What do you got now?
Eric was definitely adapted to the Big Ten rules of cheating, but I'll adapt. I'll get there. Um, look, Hank Pepper's play had the biggest impact on the game. I'm going to go, since I have to scramble, I'm going to do what Miller Moss did. I'm going to scramble. I'm going to pirouette. I'm going to spin. I'm going to throw my body over the goal line. And I'm going to put an exclamation point on the win. Touchdown, USC.
You're going with the Miller Moss run? The spin move? The Miller Moss spin move?
Pretty
You
impressive.
know what, Mark Culkin? You know what? I'm going to give you the point. Not because that was a play of the game. It was not. But because you were throwing your body around, like you mentioned, Miller Moss did. And I respect you for it. Mark Culkin's up 2-1.
Take that, Eric.
All right. Mark, question number 5. Was that the worst looking sellout of all time? And will USC fans get their act together?
So, yes, it was. Look behind me. That's what a sellout looks like. I am tired of the excuses I've been getting from the fans. I lit them up on Twitter. Said, you guys are embarrassing. I showed a picture of a video of the Coliseum at the beginning of the second quarter, and it looked like Swiss cheese. It was ugly. It was embarrassing. And the excuse of, it was hot. I'm sorry. It was what? Low mid 80s? I think the rest of the country is right. USC fans are soft. They're not going to be able to deal with the weather when they go to the Midwest during the middle of the season. That was embarrassing. That's what a sellout looks like. Look behind me. Don't tell me that there were 74,118 fans in that stadium. There were not.
We're not. This is true. Okay. So Mark Culkin, despite the fact that the Trojan family is a real thing, just went after his brothers and sisters with a vengeance. He did. So what's your answer? First of all, it is the worst looking sellout of all time. You don't even have to answer that. It is. It was terrible. Will USC fans get their act together? Or do they already have their act together and there's somebody else we should be pointing the finger at? Eric McKinney, go.
First of all, I love USC fans. They're the best. So we got that out of the way.
Me too. I mean, I'm one of them. So many of my best friends are USC fans. It's just weird to trash them that way.
Yeah, well, call as I see it.
So I want to blame a little tiny bit, and this isn't coach speak, because we already all agreed on it was not full, and when you push out, hey, it's a sellout, it can't quite look like that. People watching on TV that got upset with so much red in the stands and the seats being all red, I think it looks more empty than it actually was. That being said, Mark pointed out behind him, that's a sellout. Those seats up there by that video board that are empty in that photo, I cannot blame USC fans for not wanting to go sit up there. That was empty against Wisconsin. Those are terrible seats. Those are terrible seats for that game in the sun where you cannot see the field from up there. So I don't blame them for not going there. It is hard, and this is the 12:30 kick, the way USC runs kind of security at the Coliseum, where people have to tailgate from, all of that, you're not going to get a full stadium at kickoff. You're not. No matter what happens, you're not going to get a full stadium at kickoff. By the second quarter, when Mark took the video, took the photo, like you want it more filled than that. Here's an issue I have with USC fans getting their act together, and this is not even just if you show up or not. We talk a lot about the DJ in the stadium and good or bad, helpful. What I think it really has done has established only a call and response atmosphere for fans there. It does not feel like there is the organic, we know that this is a third down and we got to get up and go. We know we have to make noise the whole time. It is very much a wait for something on the screen or something the DJ says to start us going. And it's sort of been years of that building. And I don't know what you do about that. Student section seems to respond to him. The players from every sport talk, basketball especially, talk about liking him there. But it does feel like, and it's not specifically the DJ, it's just the atmosphere in general. It can feel sort of stale rather than that kind of organic, like we know when to get going, we know when to bring the noise. Now that's not how the sellout looks, but I had a chance to talk about the atmosphere and the fans, and I think it's definitely noticeable in sort of the feel of the game and the atmosphere.
They're trying to find something to hang their hat on, with tradition. When Pete Carroll was coaching, you had the Eminem entrance song. And now it's like, all right, here comes Traveler, light the torch. And then you got the whole William Tell overture playing in the background. And then all of a sudden you got Eminem coming on. And then you got the DJ trying to drown that out. It's like, pick something. What happened to the SoCal spell out? When do they do that? That's where USC is right now. They can't figure out. It's kind of like USC on offense to start the game. What do we want to do? What do we do well? Let's do that. And I don't think USC does anything well when it comes to marketing their stadium, their traditions, making it, a home field advantage. And then you got the home.
Right? Look, we are young. Stop. That's not the transition third quarter. Stop.
Thank you.
Stop. I know everyone's got one. That's not it. But if you want to do one, that's fine. Find a different one.
Yeah. If you're going to do one time, let it play out. Don't give me 3 quarters. And then all of a sudden DJ Mulsky's got to get his things going. Stop. Pick something.
Yeah, I don't have a problem beating up on USC fans because I think we deserve it. But USC fans are a little bit like Miami fans in the sense that neither one of those schools has the same fan base that the big public schools in the Midwest have. They don't. USC doesn't have 75,000 dedicated fans. They don't. They'll sell out the stadium when a team catches the imagination of the city and casual sports fans start coming out. When you're playing against Notre Dame and they're going to bring their 15,000 fans, right, or 20,000, whatever it's going to be. But USC does not have 75,000 dedicated football fans. They have about 40,000. That's just the way it is. And so if USC wants to sell out the stadium, if they want to have an atmosphere, they have to do a better job of marketing the game day experience. Only in sports do you blame the customer if the customer doesn't want to show up. I didn't know other business would that make sense. Like, what is wrong with all these Burger King fans? They're not eating enough burgers. Well, then get them to show up somehow. USC did a terrible job with the Coliseum remodel, and they left about 20,000 awful seats in the place. They could have done something different. Maybe it would have been more expensive. I don't know. But I think what USC decided to do was have a place where the wealthy donors could hang out. And half of them don't show up to the football games. That was a gigantic miscalculation. And they don't do a very good job of doing anything around the stadium before the game that would bring people in. And so part of it is that USC isn't doing a very good job. Part of it is that USC doesn't have a ton of football fans. And if you want people to go sit way up there in those seats that are much farther away than the cheap seats are in most modern stadiums, you're going to have a hard time doing it. You can probably get people to buy those seats, but not if you're going to sell them for $100. You want it, and maybe USC doesn't care. They got the money for the sellout. The tickets went somewhere, so they got their revenues. That's probably what they care about. But if you care about the game day experience, find somebody who'll pay $15 and get them in those seats. Anyway, okay. Both of you get a point. Both answers were solid. I'm going to give myself a point. I have 2 at this point. This is good. I've got a shot to win for the first time. All right, question number 6. And this is breaking news from WeAreSC. I very seldom break news, but I'm going to today. The reason for the slow starts is because USC has allowed Clay Helton to coach remotely the first half of every game. Is that going to continue, gentlemen? And is there an alternative to that? Mark, no. I think Eric goes first. Eric?
The Michigan game, USC felt unbelievably unprepared for the start of that one offensively. I think Clay may have gotten in to the planning meetings on that one. The Wisconsin game, I have a harder time thinking that was coaching involved in there. That's catch a third down pass. That's don't overcompensate for missing an early punt return by going and trying to field a punt you have no business being anywhere near. That's guys kind of trying to make plays or do something out of body. Again, there's times where, yeah, it's pretty clearly coaching and the plan wasn't there and you got to figure that sort of stuff out. Jacoby Covington can cover that Wisconsin wide receiver one-on-one. I'm fine with that on every play. Miller Moss throws a 3rd and 7 ball that you got to catch. Zachariah Branch has got a couple punt returns that he can do better with. I think that start to me was sort of player led on man, you guys got to get out of your own way on this one and make some plays. I know this was supposed to be Clay Helton bashing, and I'm okay not getting the point. I've already
You're pro Helton. You've already shown yourself as pro Helton. So I know. I think we know what this is gonna. I know what's gonna happen now.
But I think that's my take specifically on the difference between Michigan Wisconsin starts.
Mark Holkin.
Yeah, I'm going to start giving Eric the nickname Coach Soft Serve because apparently coaching doesn't play a role in having your team ready, prepared for their first home game against a Big Ten opponent. So yeah, the answer to the question is, if we're going to take the play calling away from Clay Helton, give it to me. That's your alternative. Let me call the plays. If we're going to look like that, give it to the untrained eyes. Let's see if they can do better.
So our best alternative is you? It's Clay Helton or you?
Which would you choose, Chris?
Death? I don't know. I mean,
thank you.
Actually, I wonder about Eric's analysis a little bit. I think against Michigan, I think the offensive line ran up into a buzzsaw of some really good future NFL players and a difficult stadium. And I think they had a very difficult time. The truth is the offensive line never really adjusted. They were getting whipped all day. Lincoln Riley adjusted to just how ugly it was going to be. The Wisconsin game looked like a team that wasn't mentally prepared to play. That's what I thought.
What I was told.
And I think it's probably partly a hangover from that Michigan loss. I think it took them a little while to get going. The Zach Branch thing, I mean, you know what happened. He let that previous punt roll all the way down the field for a 73-yard punt to the 1-yard line. I'm sure when he got to the sideline, he got chewed out, and rightfully so. You cannot let that punt roll. I mean, he had an opportunity to get that ball, and he let it go forever. That's a mistake. So I think he gets chewed out. The next time he sees the ball on the ground, he's going to go pick that thing up no matter what. I think that's what happened. But it looked like a USC team that wasn't prepared to play, giving up the deep ball early, that and some of the other some of the penalties that were a problem. I'm not necessarily going to blame that on the coaches. It is a coach's job to get the team prepared to play. But I remember playing, and my coaches didn't do a particularly good or bad job. And there were some times when I was ready, and sometimes I wasn't. They didn't look ready. But I guess we don't get to blame it on Clay because Eric's not any fun. So nobody gets a point, and it's 3-2. Okay, this question's a little bit ambiguous. Don't ask me to clarify, just answer it. I want to know the most aesthetically pleasing conference. This is major conferences because obviously the Ivy League is going to be the least aesthetically pleasing conference. But the most aesthetically pleasing conferences, the least aesthetically pleasing conference. I want to hear both. Mark, go. This question's right up your alley. This is what you're
actually, I think this question is really odd. I don't think I've ever heard the term aesthetically pleasing and football used in the same sentence ever before.
I'm an innovator. Just answer it.
You are. It sounds like a hotel brochure that I'm going to write for. So I don't know. Aesthetically pleasing conference, the best to look at. So far, I haven't been pleased with the Big Ten Conference the way they treated the media, so they're out. I'm going to give it to the SEC
Right.
Probably the least aesthetically pleasing. The ACC is hard to watch.
Okay.
They get
Eric?
they get a 2.5-star rating from me.
Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, obviously, I had no idea what you meant when you asked this question.
Probably still
And
don't.
obviously.
Doesn't get you out of having to answer it.
Still don't, but I'm gonna send you back an answer that's in the same vein. So the most aesthetically pleasing, and I went stadium feel and just kind of my feel for the aesthetics of how they play. And I'm going back in time. The old Pac-12. That's what I'm going to say. I'm gonna try to keep speaking the old Pac-12 and really 10, but speaking that into existence as conference realignment is still going to go and push forward and all of that. The stadiums, the trips that we got to do with that collection of teams was phenomenal. The least look, I ran through, you go through a few of the Big 12 places that you need to travel and stadiums there. Some of the different places in Texas you've got to get to, Manhattan, Kansas. I mean, it's Stillwater. I know the Pac-12's got Pullman in it, but for the most part, I'm going to take those Pac-12 trips.
Yeah. Yeah, those are good answers. I like those. Obviously, a lot of ambiguity because it's going to take into account everything: stadiums, fan bases, uniforms, style of play. Right. I'm with Eric. Not Pac-12. Late 1980s Pac-10, maybe. Right. You have the Rose Bowl, and you have Husky Stadium, and you have quality football. You have prime years for Song Girls. It was strong. It was a strong conference. The Pac-12 became aesthetically very displeasing because just the product on the field was so ugly to watch that it was almost unbearable. The SEC, there are a lot of SEC games where you turn it on and it just looks good. The fan bases are into it. The play, the quality of play is high. So I think it's probably one of those two that's probably the most aesthetically pleasing. I'm not sure how to give awards for this question. Nobody knew what I was asking. There's no way to judge these answers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give both of you a point, and I'm going to take away one of my 2 points. So I'm back down to 1, which means it's going to be tough for me to win today. But it's 4-3 Culkin, and we have question number 8. Who's your breakout player versus Minnesota? Who's up? I think Eric's up. Give me your breakout player versus Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm going maybe off the board here. I'm going on offense. I'm going to say Walker Lyons. I think that he feels like the kind of receiving tight end that Lincoln Riley has done some stuff with. I think he's gotten some snaps now. I think the way the big receivers played on the outside, I think the fact that Zachariah Branch's name still is one that coaches are worried about. And I think you open up a little bit of that middle for the tight end in this one. And look, would one short touchdown pass for a true freshman in his first couple games here count as a breakout? I'm gonna count that.
No.
So that's my guy. I think a couple catches from him and maybe a big player too.
Hey, I didn't see that coming. That's an interesting answer, Mark Culkin. What do you think?
A good answer.
Okay, maybe. I don't know.
I'm going to go with number 98, Brian Jackson. I think that hit that he had on kickoff coverage is going to unleash his beast. And when he puts on number 21 and starts running the ball against Minnesota, this might be his game. I think they're going to try and lean into him a little bit this time.
So you're both going with freshmen. I like that. I think Brian Jackson is the better of the two answers. I actually think that The problem is, I think he's going to have trouble getting on the field because he's got two guys ahead of him, and my answer actually was the guy directly ahead of him, who I think has been pretty consistently good, making the first guy miss. He's got good speed. I think. I understand what the coaches are doing with Woody Marks, who's a really good football player, and he's an excellent pass receiver. He's made some really good plays. I think the gap between number one and number two at that position is closing a little bit. But Brian Jackson, when he gets a chance, is going to do some things. That is a big, strong kid. Eric McKinney, for the surprise answer, gets a point. And not only that, but if Walker Lyons does have a breakout game, because I never thought anybody was going to say his name in response to that question, you will start next week's show up 2-0. So this could be a 3-point question for you. We'll just see what happens. Okay. Mark Culkin, are you, like me, moved to tears by Bear Alexander's declaration that he's a Trojan for life? And how much will his loss hurt USC going forward?
Yeah, his loss isn't going to hurt USC at all. I mean, you lose a depth piece, but he wasn't starting. And when you got to go to TMZ to start doing damage control, I don't think you're making a really good argument for yourself. That's not the best medium to use to get people to feel sorry for you, I guess, so to speak.
He should have come on inside the Trojans huddle. That was the obvious play.
Yeah, no.
Still can. Bear, if you're listening to us, and I'm sure you are, come on. We'll have you on next week. You can tell us all about it. Go ahead and finish your answer, Mark.
He held out during the spring. I said, all right, you know what? Benefit of the doubt. You're doing it because you're the best player on defense. You're getting yours. But then when you have Coach Henney, who's probably the perfect surrogate to help him cut that umbilical cord to the guy who's dragging him down, his quote unquote father, mentor, advisor, you're making a big mistake. I cannot think of a better situation for Bear Alexander than the one he was in at USC, and he literally just blew it up himself. Terrible decision. So no, this is a great, I don't want to say it's a great thing. It's a good thing he's not with the program anymore.
So, Eric, we were trying to figure out who loves USC football enough they're willing to sit in those terrible seats way in the back. I think we know now. It's Bear Alexander, a Trojan for life. Other than Bear, though, I don't know who it's going to be. How much will his loss hurt going forward?
It's a hit on the field. It's a hit. Mark's right. He wasn't starting. He was playing enough snaps to make an impact as you go. And again, this is the idea of, you look at the defensive line, and I think you still go. Devin Tompkins kind of steps up and takes, I think, those snaps that Bear was getting for the most part. And you still feel pretty good about 8 deep, right? Two deep at each spot across the front four. I think you feel good about that. You're really not taking into account guys wearing down, potential injuries, all of that. You cannot have enough competent interior defensive line on a roster. There's no way that losing a guy that can make the plays that he makes is a good thing for your football team. Off the field, like, clearly there was something there, right? The fact that Lincoln Riley would talk a lot, he's not available here, he's not practicing all the time, he's not whatever that is. And then the way this was handled, how quickly USC responded, off the depth chart, not with them for the game. It didn't feel like it did in the spring, where USC made whatever kind of contingencies and reactions that they did to keep him there when he sort of threatened the transfer portal back in the spring. So USC, the players, all of that, they clearly feel fine moving forward without him. And so maybe that helps you as a team come together, the camaraderie. We've heard over and over and over that this locker room is really tight. The feel of the team is really tight. if you lose something that's maybe fighting against that early in the year, that can help you. But he was going to make a play. He was going to make a big play at some point. I know people want to push that the play button on that video of him getting blocked against Michigan, and I get it. We got other guys who have had plays like that show up, and you trust that they're going to play through it and do it. Bear Alexander made enough plays his first year and early this year to think like, oh, he was going to have a positive impact at some point in a game down the road when you needed that depth on the interior. So I think it's that double-edged sword, right? Where yeah, you want as many of those guys on the roster as possible, but if it's dragging down how everybody sort of feels together, then yeah, maybe this does help you a little bit in the long run. Mark's right in that I don't know if there's a guy on this roster who would have benefited more from a full buy-in to what was set up for him in terms of coaches, in terms of playing time, in terms of what you could do just on the practice field going forward, in terms of if you put everything you had into it this year, you had multiple coaches who could vouch for you and would be listened to by NFL personnel when it came time to the draft, no matter kind of what you did on the field or how many snaps you got. But 20, 25, 30 snaps a game, that was going to be plenty for him to make an impact and to get better and to be a real part of this. So it's really disappointing kind of how this played out from all sides. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, USC's kept a pretty good lid on what was going on behind the scenes with Bear Alexander, because I'm not sure the extent to which he was a locker room cancer or not. Maybe he was. I know this. You hate to lose your most talented defensive player in the middle of the season. And I think Bear Alexander was that. Bear Alexander has first round talent. I don't think he'll ever be a first round draft choice, but he has first round talent. And it is a loss to USC that they were not able to take that guy, get him to figure out what he needed to do, motivate him, and get him to become the terror on the inside that he could have been. And I'm not blaming the coaches for that. I'm blaming Bear Alexander for that. But it is a huge loss to USC they couldn't do that, because there's nobody else on the roster who has that kind of talent on the inside. They have some young guys that are going to be really good players, I think. They have some overachievers that are really playing their butts off right now, and I love those guys. Those guys aren't Bear Alexander. They know they're not Bear Alexander. I was struck by the comment that Tony Jones made about how Bear about wanting to be a starter and a leader on the team. Well, you don't become a leader on the team by being the most talented guy on the team. You become a leader on the team by working your ass off and being reliable and being a guy who people look up to. Not only is a guy who was blessed by God the day he was born, but as somebody who's actually decided to take that talent and make the most of it. Bear Alexander has never done that, and apparently he's never been happy anywhere he's ever been. And wherever he ends up, he won't be happy there either.
But is it him? Is it him or is it Tony?
Well, I don't know how we can parse between the two of them. All I can say is the guy bounces around all the time and doesn't live up to his potential, and that's a shame.
Every explanation in the videos and all of that was we wanted this, we wanted to do this, we wanted to be this. It's if you're going to use we all the time, then it's we. Look, to your point, Anthony Beavers was a team captain for that Wisconsin game. Anthony Beavers does not play snaps for this team, and you can be a team leader outside of just how many in-game snaps do you take. And I think that's the juxtaposition between, look, first of all, Anthony Beavers being a team captain and Kobe Pepe making a bunch of significant plays in that game. I mean, the timing of those two things was not insignificant and certainly noticeable, I think.
Yeah, look, the average player does not respect the hugely talented guy who doesn't play up to his ability because he's not willing to give it his all. They don't. And a guy like that's not going to be a leader. You don't listen to somebody who does that. You'll take him on the team sometimes, especially if he's going to make some plays for you. And Bear Alexander did make plays for USC. He wasn't the player he could have been, but even after that 3rd and 1 debacle where he didn't get out of his stance and he stood straight up and he got pushed back, the one that everybody watches, it was a terrible play in a huge situation. But on 4th and goal, he came off the ball and he fought through blocks and he was right where he should have been. I mean, the guy can play football when he wants to. Unfortunately, I don't know when he wants to. And the next school is probably not going to get it either because this is who he is, which is unfortunate. Nobody gets a point. We're all right. It's sad. It's a sad situation. It's sad for him because he really should take unbelievable God-given ability and take it to the first round of the NFL. And that's not going to happen. And that's unfortunate. Okay, for the win, guys, it's 4-4. Here's our last question. Give me your surprise prediction for Saturday. Eric McKinney.
The USC defensive line gets a sack against Minnesota.
Oh, we're talking interior guys like Kobe Pepe?
If you're going to pin me to that, I'll say, yeah, a defensive tackle gets a sack. USC, right now, the defensive line, 1.5 sacks through 4 games. Braylon Shelby got 1 at Michigan. Devin Tompkins got half of 1 at Utah State. That's great. That's got to change. And coaches aren't going to say, how are we doing? Oh, the stat sheet says we're doing this well. That's not it. I mean, they're watching film. They're doing all of that stuff. They're breaking stuff down far more than that. But you need kind of an impactful play that changes a drive, potentially changes a game. I think you got to start getting home on some of these quarterbacks. And you look at UCLA's numbers and one guy last year, for Dan Lynn, one guy really shifted a whole lot of that from coming off the edge there. And so I think SC's that defensive line, you got to find something. And right now games are sort of ticking away and you're not getting there.
You have some guys who are rushing hard, shrinking the pocket. They're doing some things. What you don't have are the quick beats that you need, right? The sort of thing that was happening against Michigan over and over again the wrong way. You don't have that. And I don't know that this USC team right now has anybody who can give you that consistently. It may be that, you have a freshman edge who's playing scout team that can do that in a couple of years, maybe. But I don't know. You're talking about, can Braylon Shelby develop into that? Maybe. But I thought we would see more pass rush from Braylon Shelby this year. I'm a little bit surprised by that. So, yeah, Eric's surprise prediction is a sack from a defensive lineman, and apparently he was even including the edges. I don't know what to make of that answer. That's sad that he thinks that would be a gigantic surprise if a defensive lineman, including an edge, got a sack. Mark, give me something better and win this game. Just take it. It's right there for the taking.
I'm glad he limited himself to 1 sack, because I went and looked at Minnesota's national ranking. They rank 113th in sacks allowed. USC should get 1 sack with their eyes closed in this game.
Are they going to play that way?
Well, I hope they don't. But I actually have them gaining.
But I picked 1 sack. Mark's picking 1 blindfolded sack. This is.
I'm picking.
I don't know how we check this if they have their eyes open or closed.
I'm picking 4 total for the defense.
1 blindfolded and 3 traditional sacks.
Right. Yes.
Okay. You know what, guys? I hate to do this. I hate to do it. But we're going back to the old college football rules where you don't even have an overtime. I'm not giving either one of you a point for that nonsense. One surprise is 1 sack from a defensive lineman, and Mark talking about guys playing with their eyes closed. You know what? This ends 4-4. It ends 4-4. I hate to do it. I feel bad.
Okay, the surprise is that a live golden gopher delays play by running on the field, and we get one of those, he's at the 30, 20, 10 from the announcers in this
It would
one.
have been amazing. You would have won the game. That's all you had to do is say something like that. Say something ridiculous like that, and you would have won. But you couldn't do it. You know what? This
Okay,
is.
I gave you half ridiculous. I said blindfolded, and they're going to get 4.
You know how LA sports fans come late and leave early? You guys left early. You left before question number 10. We're done. It's a tie game. Do you guys have any apologies or anything else you want to share before you go off the air?
I thought the show was
All the apologies.
pleasing.
Wait, what did you say, Mark? You thought the show was what?
I thought the show was aesthetically pleasing.
It was. It was. I agree with that. This is the most aesthetically pleasing USC show, I think.
I say we get rid of that word from football.
We're gonna get trashed. We're gonna get trashed in the comments for saying that, I'm sure. All right, Eric, do you have anything you want to share?
I mean, no. I really
No,
share
if you don't,
everything
you don't.
I have during 10 questions.
Yeah, if you okay, well, that's sad. Okay, I guess we're finished then. Until next week, we have a tie here. I think we'll see a better performance from USC on Saturday. We'll see you next week. Fight on.